Hi, I'm Dr. Dana Churchill here at my clinic in West LA, the Churchill Center for Integrative Medicine. I wanted to speak a little bit about certain conditions and certain treatments that we have here that make an amazing difference in some of my patients' lives. There's one testimonial video right now I have that is by an ex-basketball player, professional basketball player named Ken Johnson. And Ken came to me, as he says, you can see in the testimony, he already had 2 toes cut off. The hospital was telling him he's going to have his whole foot cut off because he had diabetic ulcers, and he just didn't have the circulation. You know, he's very tall, he's a really big guy, so maybe that circulation just not getting down to his feet, plus he has diabetes, so the little small vessels in the toes start to get plugged up with sugar because the sugar isn't going into the cell. So where does it go? It goes wherever it can, and it starts to plug up those small vessels. When your small vessels get plugged up, blood flow can't get to the fingers, the toes, the nose, the places on your body, the extremities. And so we started doing the hyperbaric with Ken, and he was doing pretty well. And then we gave him the non-rebreather mask. So he's getting the oxygen, 82% oxygen, because we have 2 concentrators on our oxygen chamber, our hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And he was doing them every day. He was very diligent. And you put the mask on, within 3 days, those things started to heal up amazingly well, the diabetic ulcers. He went back to his MDs, to the hospital. They said, "What did you do? This is amazing. All the gangrene that was there before is gone, and now there's new tissue in that place." So I want to expand upon that a little bit more. Ken just wanted to do the oxygen therapy, which is great, but what I usually offer, and I offered to him, was do the oxygen therapy first, get the oxygen in your blood, and do what we call hydrotherapy. Now, this isn't colonics, okay? This is constitutional naturopathic hydrotherapy. It's about 200, 250 years old. What it has to do with hot and cold towels and a sine wave. It stimulates blood flow in a huge way throughout the whole body. It also stimulates and cleans the lymph out. The lymph is where, you know, all the bad things in your body, the immune system puts all those things that it catches. It puts them in the lymph, so you definitely want to get that out. It detoxes the gut, the GI tract, and boosts the immune system. So when we do a series, now I usually do about 2 or 3 per week. It's 2 hours each time. You do a hyperbaric oxygen, and then you'll do a hydrotherapy. And we've seen amazing results because, you know, you're putting oxygen in the blood, and then you're stimulating the blood flow, so the body, all the appendages, all the organs, everything get perfused with a lot of healthy blood and a lot of healthy oxygen. It works wonderfully. Thanks. Hi, I'm Dr. Dana Churchill in my clinic here in West LA, and I would like to talk a little bit about today about the ADD and ADHD, the attention deficit disorder and attention hyperactivity deficit disorder, and autism, ASD spectrum kids. I started using a lab about 2 years ago called the Great Plains Lab in Kansas, Dr. Shaw, and I just had amazing results after using this lab. They really helped me to understand how to pick needles out of a haystack within the human body to see what was wrong with children, and even a lot of times I use the lab for adults. But for the kids, it seems like the children in America, at least, are really getting beat up these days. They're getting so much stress put on them. You know, everybody wants them to go to a good school, get a good job, economy's tight. Then they're being bombarded with chemicals, heavy metals, and toxins constantly in our milk, in our dairies is tainted. You know, unless you're shopping at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's every day, your food's filled with chemicals. You can study, you can analyze it, and you'll see. And heavy metals as well. And these children are just developing. I mean, think about it. Their nervous system's developing, their immune system, their endocrine system, all their bodily organ systems are just starting to develop. But now they have to deal with all these toxins and all these things in the environment. Plus so much sugar in all our foods. I mean, half the things we eat have corn syrup and sugar in them. So we've really started to find some really great ways to treat these children with no medications, no drugs. I personally would never want to give a child a drug. I mean, it's debatable sometimes whether you need antibiotics. A lot of times we can do it naturally, especially with earaches and things like that. Let's break the cycle. Let's get the milk out of the diet. Let's measure the food sensitivities, because that's what's causing a lot of the earaches, milk especially. And let's look at GI function. Let's really see what's going on with these kids. So what I usually do for an ADD kid or ADHD kid, I'll run a panel from Great Plains Lab. And I'm finding also they're contracted with Blue Cross. So if you have Blue Cross, a lot of times it covers 100% for these labs. And these panels are $1,000, $2,000 panels sometimes with 6 or 8 different labs. And some of them have anywhere from 50 to 72 different markers in them, you know, specifically like the organic acid test, the comprehensive stool panel, the food sensitivity panel, heavy metal test, we'll use a hair sample, and we're starting to see many of these labs come back positive. So these children, we can just see from the labs in their bodies, they're being bombarded by chemicals and they're not getting them out. They're getting some of the chemicals out, but a lot of them are staying in the body and they're affecting the brain, they're affecting the neurotransmitters. I also use another lab called neuroscience for many of these children and for adults too. We can measure all the neurotransmitters and all the hormones and see what's really happening in the brain, and then we can modulate them with natural medicines. You know, I would never put anybody on a antidepressant. And there's just too many problems with them these days. What I use a lot of times are natural substances, herbs, you know, different formulas. With neuroscience, when we do a neuro panel, basically they have their own medicines too. And we work with the lab to find out, you know, what are the markers, what are your biochemical markers, what is your brain, what's going on in your brain, and then we have natural medicines, many different ones like GABA, tyrosine, phenylalanine, a lot of different things to balance the brain chemistry. So that works really nicely too. So please, you know, if you have a child and your child has ADD or ADHD and they're going to be put on Ritalin because the teachers in school are pressuring you to do that, don't give in, don't cave into that. Children should not have drugs, and children should not have drugs that stimulate the central nervous system, because if you keep your child on it long enough, it's going to stunt their growth. You know, I mean, the bottom line is just come in here or call me. Let's do a 15-minute free consult. I can tell you what I can do for you, and bring these kids in and let's get them off the drugs and get them on natural medicines, okay? Let these kids thrive. They're our future in America, okay? Please call me. Thank you. Hi, my name is Dr. Dana Churchill. I'm here at my clinic in West LA, the Churchill Center for Integrative Medicine. And today I'd like to talk a little bit about children and earaches and kind of chronic illness like chronic bronchitis, chronic things like that. Basically, the earaches we've had amazing results with. You don't need antibiotics for earaches. You really don't. What you need to bring your child in here to be assessed, of course, every child needs to be assessed as an individual. So I'm making a broad statement in general. But typically what I found is if you keep putting a child on antibiotics for earaches, you're going to go around in a cycle. It becomes a vicious cycle. And the child is basically going to be almost addicted, not physically addicted, but he's going to need the antibiotics every single time because the infections are going to get worse and worse. You're going to keep getting stronger and stronger antibiotics, and you're keep killing out all the flora, eliminating all their gut flora, which is where 75% of your immune system is. So what we usually do for children like this is we will do a really powerful probiotic. We'll give them garlic and mullein oil, as long as there's no perforation inside. We'll do a few drops, and we'll also do a homeopathic remedy. And there's maybe 10 homeopathic remedies for children. It's not that difficult. Like when you're working with adults, it could be hundreds of different remedies. But these kids, you know, it's usually a belladonna earache. It's that earache that you wake up in the middle of the night, the kid's screaming, his face is dry, but he's red, he's very flushed, the ear's throbbing red. If you just had a little bit of belladonna, a homeopathic medicine, and put it under his tongue, within 5 minutes it would go away. I'm not kidding. I've seen that. I've seen it happen right in front of me. I did it with a kid in my... It happened. The kid came over to my house one night. His parents knew I was a doctor. They brought him in, and we found the remedy. And within 5 minutes he was better. Within 15 minutes he fell back asleep. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to look at this. But that was treating the acute earache. If the child keeps having repetitive ear infections, we need to bring them in to find the chronic remedy, which is taking into consideration everything is his environment, everything that's going on, so we can break the cycle. Homeopathy is a great medicine for breaking the cycle. So if you don't want to keep going through this with your child, please call me, and I'll give you the number in a minute. One other thing I want to talk about is the child that keeps having the bronchiole, the bronchitis, almost like the whooping cough sometimes, or the very, very confluent, very full mucus, and he's green, yellow mucus, and he keeps getting these type of things. Many times we're seeing that's from food sensitivities blunting the immune system, especially if he's perpetually sick all the time. I've seen some of these kids. There's great homeopathic remedies for that. There's some herbal tinctures and probiotics. I'm going to talk about probiotics for a minute because not all probiotics are created equal. Okay, probiotics are the little bugs that you take to reseed your gut flora. Now, I'll go back up a little bit because you know how they recently did the human genome, the sequence of human genome. Okay, it gave us some information. I don't know how useful it is, but the big project that I'm waiting to be finished is the human biome. Now, the human biome is all the flora in your GI tract and in your body, and that amounts to many, many, many more times than your cells in your body. You have more gut bugs, as we call them, different bacteria in your GI tract, and that's we're seeing more and more is basically the basis of your immune system. many, many times. So instead of taking that antibiotic, give them a very strong probiotic. Okay, you can call me and bring your child in here. I'll tell you which ones to take. I only use about 3 different companies now. I'm going to tell you why. My school, the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Oregon, did a sample, and they sent out to about 20 companies who made probiotics. They offered them to send their probiotics to our medicinary in Oregon, and they would say, well, if it passes the test, we'll sell it here. And you're talking about, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 doctors would be possibly prescribing this, so it would be a really great account to have. They make a lot of money. Well, they sent out 20 different letters to different companies. They only got back 3, okay? And those are the 3 that I use today. I mean, this is taught in our school. There are probably others that are good, but from what I've heard from my patients, when I ask them what they're on, and I say, does it work? Most of them say they're not really sure. Did you feel anything when you took it? I'm not really sure. It's no good. And the reason why a lot of the probiotics are dead in the bottle, because these bugs have to be kept alive. And the company that's making them has to keep checking, and has to keep sampling their probiotics all along the way, and there's only very few that do. I'm just going to mention 2 companies that I like very much, is Claire Labs and Seroil, or HMF. We use a lot of HMF here, a lot of Seroil. And when I have those probiotics, you know, I know that the patient's going to get what they're really supposed to get. And these children need probiotics. There was one of my professors at school, Dr. Tom, amazing doctor in Oregon, and basically he says the mom should actually be putting probiotics on the breast and letting the child have the probiotics while he's nursing from day 1, from very, very, very young, to help that immune system and that GI tract. So important to be really, really powerful when they get older later. So you don't want to go through the cycle of killing off your flora and taking antibiotics and killing off your flora, because eventually you're going to get what's called C. diff, or some really nasty bacteria in your GI tract, and there's not going to be anything left to overgrow it, to take away the oxygen or the food. Because if you have a really good gut flora, it will be using oxygen, using food. It'll be like a healthy garden, I'll put it this way. And the weeds won't be able to grow. Okay? Now the weeds here we're talking about can be pretty detrimental sometimes. So thanks for letting me share. Thank you.